Hey guys, this is Devin and this is Barefoot Props. This week we have another viewer request video. It's how to make gauntlets. Got Bucky out here with us on this kind of late night as we're getting started on this. Luckily, me and Redneck has kind of made some peace. It's been kind of touch and go recently, but I think, we're getting along now. We're connecting. So hopefully this will streamline stuff in the shop and we can get some more content out to you. Stay tuned. All right guys, before I get into my high-speed montage of me trying to tape my arm up one-handedly to get my base template, I did want to show you what we made this week. We made this gauntlet bracer combination. I made a steampunk look to this. I'm going to show you how to make this and the base template, even making sure everything fits you, some magnetic closures, and you can decorate it however you want to. Stay tuned. All right, whew. That's a lot easier if you have somebody helping you. So, in some extents, get a helper. I'm gonna work on trimming this up, just like we did when we went back to our part 1 and part 2 of template creations. We're gonna make some cut lines so this will lay flat on a piece of foam. All right, so there is the base template. I had to split it here so it'd lay flat, but we need to transfer this over into something a little bit more cleaner and something to work on. So I'm gonna grab some paper and get going on that. We do need to make some adjustments to this. So we gotta remember that this is based off of 1 paper thickness thick, but whatever thickness of foam we're gonna be putting on, like a 1/4 inch or so, we need to add allowances for that. Plus straighten out any little variations here, like in the foam. Right. And we went over template creation earlier, but just to show you real quick, I did make some adjustments in the template size for the thickness of my foam. So in this one, it looks like I pretty much added about, if we even it out, I added about a 1/4 inch on both sides, maybe a little bit more on this side. And then I straightened out this divot here on this side right here. So a rough rule of thumb is if you're using like a 1/4 inch foam, I would at least add a 1/4 inch to both sides. If you're using 1/2 inch foam, I'd add a 1/2 inch to both sides because it's got to wrap around your arm. And the best thing to do, in all honesty, is to allow even a little bit extra because you can always trim it later, but it's harder to add foam back on. Hey guys, future me is going to interject right here because I got to thinking about this method of how I add at least the amount of the thickness of the EVA foam to both sides. But I really started thinking about it, and there's actually some math here, because it's still coming up just a little bit short, so I always just add a little bit extra and then trim back. But if you think about it, it's a circle. So the circumference of a circle is pi times the diameter. So if we're adding a 1/4 inch foam to circumference, we're basically adding a 1/2 inch to the diameter because we got a 1/4 inch on both sides. So we can take the 1/2 inch, or 0.5 times 3.14, and so that roughly shows that we've got 1.5 inches extra. So that's why, so really I'm adding almost 3/4 of an inch to both sides for a 1/4 inch foam, and you can do the same method, basically it'd be 3 inches for a 1/2 inch foam. If you're making a complete circle. Now, EVA foam does stretch, so you still will have to trim it. We're going to trace this on and start cutting. going to put a little heat to this. I'm going to mark this to the left side so I knew which one was the outside. We're going to put some heat to this and kind of go ahead and get a basic bend. Then we'll glue this seam together. Once you get this coated, take a piece of scrap foam and wipe off the excess there. Make sure it gets all the way down into that little crease and just come over. I went ahead and pre-cut several 1-inch wide strips of EVA foam so we can start gluing those up. We are going to glue on our EVA foam strips here so we can go ahead and mount the magnets. Just make sure you line the edges up really well. And we can trim them to length after we get them on there. All right, these are the magnets I'm going to be using. Just going to drill some holes here. I actually might burn a little hole first just to give myself a good little area to go into with the drill so it doesn't move around. I'm just going to go ahead and line these two up here and hold them. And we're just going to kind of mark across so we know where we want the magnets to go. Sometimes when you try to drill into EVA foam, stuff just kind of, the drill bit wants to travel a little bit. So I'm just going to warm up the tip of this little metal skewer. You can use anything, but just to give myself a little spot to start the drill at, we're just going to melt little holes here. You want to make sure you do this in a well-ventilated area. All right, we're going to lay that off the edge so it doesn't catch anything on fire and get rid of this torch. We're going to use a 1/4-inch drill bit. And we're just going to drill out these holes a little bit. All right, so what we'll do is we'll put some super glue in these holes. Or I'm using Gorilla Glue. We're just going to stick them, the magnets down in there and then separate them off. They stick so well together, you have to you may have to separate them before you can actually stick them into the holes. And you just want to make sure you mount them flush so that when we close this together, they'll line up and be flush. So I'm going to do that. Pull that one back out. Oh, one other thing. When you put the magnets in, make sure you have the polarity right. So like one way it won't stick. So when you put this one in on this opposite side, you need to make sure you have the polarity right so that it'll stick together. So. While this glue is drying, let's not put them together right now because they'll pop apart. I'm going to show you, since we got our drill out, we're going to make these parts right here. So these little round EVA foam pieces, what I used to make these is just a doorknob set bit. And you get a whole kit of these for various sizes, and they cut good holes in the EVA foam. I used, this is that textured EVA foam I had. Kind of gives it, I think it looks more like a cast metal, so that's why I'm using it. It still leaves a little area down in the bottom you got to clean up with a Dremel, but you can use this to drill those out. And I went ahead and drilled a couple of those out with this. It goes through the foam really easy, and then you just pull the foam back out. It's another good way if you need an actual hole in something, you can use these, and it leaves nice clean holes. But the most important part of this is the inside hole. So this nice little inside hole. And I recommend everybody do this as you start finding little tubes and pieces of metal. This is actually a broken wind chime piece. It had a nice size. I used PVC pipe. I've used other copper tubing and stuff like that of various sizes. So I sharpen my edge with my sander on that, and I save these. I save them, put them in my cutting drawer. They're various sizes. And so you just basically take this, find the center of your object, with that sharp edge, and then just kind of start pushing down and twisting. And it cores it out for you. And so that's the beauty of EVA foam. It's relatively easy to cut. So now I've got those 3 donuts. Plus, if you save these little inside parts, these little circles, you can use those for other things too. That one, the holes off. All right, guys. So at this point, essentially, we have our base gauntlet. You know, the magnets are in. Everything stays together. You can just put it on your arm, and you can go from there and decorate this however you want to. The reason we want it to extend down to the back of the hand is that keeps this from rotating. So whenever you wear armor, even no matter how tight and how form-fitting you have it, after it heats up for a while, and it's got some weight on it, it wants to rotate when you're wearing it. So especially if you got like an elbow piece that needs to be in a certain area. So this way, it'll stay stationary the whole time I'm wearing it. So you don't have to do this as a steampunk. This can be decorated however you want to. You can save this template now that you've made, and with minor adjustments, every time you can recreate gauntlets to fit you. So just keep this, throw it in your stash, and you can make, you know, medieval gauntlets. You can make space age gauntlets. You can make steampunk gauntlets like I'm making. So if you want to stop here, you can. I wouldn't recommend it because I'm awesome. All right, so I'm going to secure this wide piece of elastic here on the back here all the way around, and that's going to help give us strength to hold that to our hand. So, and I want to cover it up. So we're going to put it on there, and then we're going to cover it up with kind of the knuckle guard here. And so I'm just going to use my template of my pattern here that I had. And we're just going to retrace that end part so we can make a mirror image of it. Now, just one tidbit of information again. So we want to make sure that we make this bigger because, again, we're wrapping around the outside of this foam. So I'm going to add about 1/4 inch to it, just kind of like we talked about. We can always shave it off. Shave it off some later. And the key, guys, sharp knives, sharp knives, sharp knives. I know I say that a lot, but man, so worth changing blades and keeping your knife sharp. Let's see how that fits. Actually fits pretty good. So let's glue on the elastic, and we'll get this shaped on, and then it's on to the fun part, which is decorating. So while we're waiting for this to dry, I'm going to show you how I made this. Well, I'm going to cut out this piece for this right here. So the way I made this was I just put masking tape over this form, you know, in layers, and then drew out where I wanted that piece to be. So I'm not going to do that again because I've already got the template. We're just going to flip it over. But if you have questions about that, go to my videos on template creation, and I explain that process. So. So now that everything's held in place in the right shape, we can start putting our strapping on and our other decorations. We want to have it in its shape that it's going to be before you put those decorations on, so that it won't pull it back out of shape. So that's why I went ahead and did all the magnets and everything first. So we're going to go ahead and start putting our strapping on like we have in the other one. And then we'll put our back plate, back piece on, and then we're going to look about doing our cool little decorations. So. right, so I found this in my bin of stuff I've saved for some odd reason. This is a little grid pattern. I'm thinking I'd like to try to put that down inside here to kind of break up the design a little bit. So we're going to see how well I can drop this down in here and glue it in place. We're going to paint, and what I did to make this color is I first put a coat of Plasti Dip down, then I coated it with gloss black, and then I kind of did a variation of a hammered copper and a hammered bronze. So this is just how I base spray paint it. Hit some black and some of the metal highlights so that they're already kind of there, and then we'll go over the top of it to refine it to make it look more like this one right here. So I'm going to start with some black, working on my metal grates and these little risers here. Make sure my pipe's all black so that when I go back over with silver, it'll all pop. This is Liquitex heavy body acrylic, and I'll be also using some Testors metallic paints, copper, silver, and gold. And I'm going to use Liquitex iridescent rich silver too. So. So silver colors go better over black, and often, you know, if you're doing like bronzes, they do better over brown. You don't want everything to ever be like all one color. You want a bunch of variations of the color. And so that's why all these little layered techniques, the painting and then then some darkening and then the highlights, it's all about creating depth. And with depth, that's where you get realism. All right, guys, here you have it, left and right steampunk gauntlets. I don't know how good you can see these, but a little variation in the two designs here a little bit. So just thanks for watching. And again, this was just a template to show you how to make gauntlets, so you can decorate them however you want to, guys. Please subscribe and hit the bell so you'll get notifications of all my upcoming videos.